All right, I'm live. Am I live? Can can someone confirm that I'm live? Okay. Okay. So Connor doesn't think I'm live. Well, okay. Yeah, I'm gonna do it anyway though. Even though I'm live, I'm gonna mess it with my hair because I don't like my hair right now. Okay, I'm not gonna do that. Yes, I am. Okay, great. So, good morning. My name is Connor Young. I'm the founder of Ample, and today I'm going to give you a presentation on where we're at with the company. This is a big day. And by the way, like I built the airplane while it's in flight, pretty much the entire stage of this business. So there's certain things that are not totally set up yet, but I'm just putting that as a caveat. So, but regardless, you're here because we invited you yesterday to talk about the new advances of the company. And it's been a long time since I've reached out. And in fact, a lot of people have been even wondering, like, what's going on with Ample? Are you guys in business? Do you like let's just be real. That's like a legit concern for people. We are very much in business, and we are very much excited to unveil this new phase of the business. Um, and so, of course, first off, though, we want to talk about the manufacturing. So we identified this amazing manufacturer that we're in the final stages of the uh, evolvement of that kind of the lease and all that stuff. But I'm going to actually just share my presentation right now because I think that's what I should do. And let me just make sure oh wait, I'm already sharing it. I'm already sharing it. Okay, well, whatever. Um, Fine. Okay. So basically, this is the new manufacturing facility. It's on Research Drive. It's this amazing place up in Richmond, California. So I'm very pumped about it because number one, it's close to me. Number two, it looks really nice. It's actually got all of the stuff that we have. So inside, um, these drop ceilings, fantastic and they just came this way, right? So basically, there's almost no remodeling that's going to be required for this thing, which is amazing. And so here we are with the warehouse. It's got enough storage space. It's got two facilities, and also even next door, number one, we have enough. Yes, can you mention that before, like earlier? um, Sorry, that was me being. I'm sorry. Um, oh, okay. So now I'm here. Oh, okay, got. Oh, here we go. All right, here we go. Good. So, I, Leo does everything for me. So I'm sorry that I'm ever frustrated with him. He's the best person. Um, so this new manufacturing facility is in Richmond, California, and it is in the North Bay, kind of close to the Oakland, San Francisco area. And the beauty of this is that it's basically perfect for everything that we need. There's there's enough storage space here. There's two production rooms, and they're big production rooms. So the ability for us to expand is amazing. And even there are more places available right next door, so that if we grow to the extent that we can't actually fit everything in this current warehouse, we can grow to that through those capacities as well, which is really exciting. Most important, it looks nice. And I know that may not seem like a big deal, but it's like right next to a park, which is for me a really big deal because if I'm coming to work every day, I'm going to go to like a real office job. I want it to look nice. And I'm a cat person, and this land has some good guardian cats, so I think that's a plus. So, and now where are we at? Blah 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 blah. Yeah, right. So basically, here's the deal. Why do we even need this change in the first place? Well, as you know, I sent you an email a few days or a few months ago that said, look, we're this isn't working with our existing contract manufacturers. They cost a lot of money. They're very non unreliable. They're bureaucratic. They're slow to change, and basically they're not making it possible to make the ample that you deserve. Now, this is not, however, an issue with these two manufacturers. And this is the thing that I've discovered over the last, 7 or 8 years, which is that these problems that we're experiencing are essentially just manifestations of a larger, more systemic issue, right? And so with myself, I generally think about first principles, and I think to myself, how can we solve the actual root of this problem? Because at the end of the day, the biggest important thing for me is actually making you an amazing product. So when I was looking at this existing system of just the supply chain itself, I said, okay, time out. Number one, we need a different solution immediately from a manufacturing standpoint. But number two, how can we honestly say, like for me, I want to look at someone in the eye and say, this is the absolute best product you could possibly put into your body. And to be perfectly honest, I can't. And that's not because I'm not trying, right? It's legitimately because the ingredients that would make this thing, quote unquote, perfect, don't actually exist in the existing supply chain. What does that mean? Well, once again, as everyone at this point probably knows, what's less important is the branding and the shiny colors and even the organic certification and things like that, rather than the actual food itself. And unfortunately, our agricultural system is actually not designed for regenerative agriculture. And so regenerative agriculture is, if you're not aware of this, this is a major step up in just the ability for us to maintain ourselves on planet Earth, because although, they're very well intentioned, things like just eating vegan, just eating organic is actually not good enough. So the standards for those products are legitimately not good enough. Number one, for the health quality. Number two, dramatically worse sustainability than something that is truly regenerative. And so if I'm saying, look, we have 20 plus ingredients in our product. These days, if you look on the shelf, go look on the shelf, and if you see a regenerative product, it's going to have one ingredient in it. I can almost guarantee you. Why? Because it's hard. Because it's like just coffee, just whatever, are regenerative, or just cacao. Because these are some of the industries that consumers care the most about, or at least that's where they kind of get the most press. It's kind of interesting. You probably look at, you're like, well, why don't I see those same types of thing, like this fair trade stuff with other industries? The cacao and chocolate and the coffee industry have just gotten a lot more popular. And so that's where the tip of the spear is for this environmental and the sustainability, as well as the quality aspects of things. But the problem is that those are just so minute that, like, to actually make a product with 20 ingredients that's all regenerative is not possible. So I said, okay, fine. We got to think of a solution to that. And then boom, COVID hit. And then boom, war in Ukraine hit. And those were difficult challenges, because it was like, okay, so also time out. The whole system itself can't even get us the existing stuff. It also is a fragile system. So we really need to take some steps back in order to make those giant leaps forward that we really want to see. And so those are the things that were part of the capacity for me to say, okay, number one, I'm not even going to try to go down the route again of doing a traditional contract manufacturer. I'm going to figure this out for myself, or for ourselves, and I'm going to obviously rely on the wisdom of other people who've done it. So we have great advisors, but there's a change that's necessary for us to be able to take this business to where we want to go. And unfortunately, that means delays for us, delays for you, and I'm very sorry about that. So today, though, I did want to actually talk about, though, this larger vision, and how is it possible? Could it be possible for us to make changes and adaptations to our own product that also can fix some of the fundamental issues in the supply chain that I was mentioning earlier? Well, I think that's possible, and this is what we're planning to do. So as the title suggests, the food industry is like a plant that's withering at the roots. And here's the problem. If you just look at the supply chain kind of like a tree, you can notice here where you've got the consumers on the top, the grocers, the influencers, the partnerships, all those people that you know. And then there's a brand, and you know those people. You can see those people. But those people are only the top of the tree. The roots are really what matter. because honestly, the manufacturer, the distributor, the processor, the farmer, the aggregator, these are the ones who make your product. And unfortunately, they all go through one little teeny, you know, choke point of information, and that's the brand. That's us. And so you have to trust us. You have to trust us to say, here's what's going on. The problem is you don't have enough information to hold us accountable. So of course, we have a lot of different things, solutions to make that, possible. We have government, in 1901, Teddy Roosevelt created the FDA as a result of listening to or reading the book called from Upton Sinclair that was talking about a Chicago meat packing plant that was awful. And he's like, this is truly the worst. So we do not want this. And so how do we make this happen? So the industry does a very good job with health and safety, but what they don't do is anything beyond that. No sustainability and no and rudimentary nutrition facts. It's very easy to fake this label and to kind of make this ingredient deck, to play games with it, right? And so when you're actually, competing in this very limited market, or sorry, it's not limited, but I'm saying it's like a crowded market, and the attention is limited. If you're a company, you actually need this to say whatever the heck you need it to say, and sometimes you don't actually care exactly what's in the product. And unfortunately, we then have to appear better than we actually are. And so we market the heck out of our products. And so oftentimes customers are paying more for marketing and less for product, and health and sustainability and equality are the detriments of this system. So the nutshell of this is that transparency itself is the most important thing. It's actually the critical point of fixing all of this. And I'm going to be making that argument, and I'm going to show you at the end how we plan on fixing that problem, like for everyone. So without transparency, as I said, marketing and greenwashing do trump real progress. I mean, how many of these things have you seen where it's like banks are literally like, spending billions of, or however many, lots of dollars on we give 1% to blah, blah, blah. It's like, but how many percent did you actually pay on advertising there, So anyway, and the problem is as well is that like converting the whole world to organic and vegan just won't cut it. So what we currently do right now is that we use these third-party systems to validate, the legitimacy of a product. And the problem is, of course, number one, these things, I mean, except for the FDA, or sorry, the USDA, that's like a government agency, but a lot of these are public companies that are themselves competing. And even so, the standards on those may not be all that great. One of the other aspects of this is that even despite 20 years of government support, and being the most well-known real certification of food quality in the world, we only have scale to 1% of the world's farmland, right? So that's a relatively low, like very small amount. Like this is 20 years of progress and 40 years in the making. And yet only 1% of the world is actually transferring to that system. And additionally, people actually end up faking it a lot of the times. There are trivial penalties for falsifying the organic labeling system. You can see here that it's $21,000 of breaking this. So what a lot of companies do is they buy up a smaller company that is already organic. They pay this fine as a marketing cost, and then they just market the crap, right? So it's like stuff like that happens a lot. And I'm not trying to make you feel like, oh my God, I can't trust anyone. I think, well, to an extent, but from a health and safety standpoint, I think, or I think from a food safety standpoint, we're doing a very good job. It's just the quality that we're really lacking in. So there are some bright spots, however. Fair trade, regenerative, certified organic, these are very amazing. The problem, though, is that there's such a small, like minuscule portion of the people who are actually paying attention to these things. Maybe it's different in the Bay Area or New York or wherever you live, but regardless of on the grand scale, like this just isn't a big deal yet. And so the other thing about this as well is that like it's difficult for people to maintain these things, right? It's difficult for a farmer, for instance, to pay the money for this certification. It's difficult for them to make the bridge of transitioning their commodity crop system to, a regenerative system. It takes 3 to 5 years for their whole like cropland to actually transition. Who's going to pay them? The problem is at the end of the day, they don't have any access to people who will pay them for these products. So that's really the biggest issue at the end of this thing. So now, as a result of this thing, not only are brands kind of quote unquote faking it to an extent. I mean, we all kind of put up a face, but it's like, we all kind of know that we're just getting these raw ingredients from the suppliers, and we kind of don't have a choice, or we feel like we don't have a choice, but to just go along with the game. And of course, as well, like one of the issues is that this is not an issue with just brands, right? Every layer of the supply chain only really interacts with the layer on top of it or and below it, just one layer different. So you're basically playing a game of telephone. And so brands like Ample, for instance, we source or have traditionally sourced these raw ingredients, or sorry, these finished ingredients from sales reps at these conferences. And of course, we're all subject to the exact same like marketing stuff that all these other people do. And they withhold their IP, or sorry, their sourcing info, as well as their, other types of ethical issue, other type of ethical data in order to maintain their IP. And of course, everyone in society says, "Oh, I couldn't ask them for those pieces of information because that's proprietary." And so customers themselves don't believe that they can ask for transparency, for real transparency, because we're all trying to preserve the privacy of the IP. But having a question around this IP thing is something that we will bring up. So meanwhile, farmers are treated like dirt, right? The fact that they are actually anonymous within this system, no one knows who they are. I mean, except for the immediate layer that's just on top of these people. And so oftentimes the most immediate layer is these large multinational conglomerates who they naturally sell to because they need sustainable cash. Their local market isn't going to get them the cash sustainability because, of course, any type of drought, any type of whatever, if there's a weather problem, they want the certainty of a multinational conglomerate. However, these same people are the ones who dictate the practices that are often destructive to the environment and for our own health. So additionally, essentially, these farmers are paying the brunt of this as well, right? So they're the poorest of the people, but they're also suffering these growing seed costs, as well as skyrocketing fertilizer costs. I mean, this is a massive deal. So they're just getting more and more riddled in debt, right? And kind of more and more dependent on these larger, bureaucratic institutions in order to do this. And as a result, their quality actually suffers. Number one, they go to well, I'll show you this one, the one that you're probably more familiar with, which is that they're either bought out by these conglomerates or they're forced to implement these destructive practices like monocrop culturing. Or if they're in a more like a developing nation, then different systems like actually this is north of Delhi where our software developer Chaitanya, he actually has to leave Delhi because Delhi itself, this city of like 20 million people, gets so much smoke from the farmers north of Delhi, who at the end of the year, they just burn all the stubs of their crops because they don't have another way of doing a lot of these things. And so no one really knows about that type of thing, but it's like that's not a I mean, it's an effective process, but it's not something that's good for the environment because you don't want a lot of this smoke. I mean, I don't think I need to explain myself further. So the problem, of course, is that these farmers are really caught between a rock and a hard place, and they're the people who really matter. It's the farmers, as well as the small scale processors that are doing things locally. But the problem is, of course, with this entire system, that's not what you see at all. You see these brands who are talking about these stories. They're saying, they're giving a cool picture of an indigenous woman on the front of their package and saying, look, this is where we, what we give money to or whatever, but you actually don't know what's happening. And so these people who are actually in the system are caught between this rock and a hard place where they're financially strapped, but they feel like they have to kind of go back to this, this institution. And really, because of that, it's a very fragile system. Any type of issue, whether it be economic, war, or environmental could kind of break this system, right? COVID honestly was not a huge environmental issue. It wasn't a big but it still set things back. And so I'm thinking about different problems that may actually kind of cause this thing to kind of grind a bit to the halt, or cause some devastation. And so those are the things that I'm also thinking about, including the food quality. At the end of the day, though, investors and consumers, they support what they can see, which of course are these sexy brands and these cool tech startups, but not farms. I guarantee you, by the way, if we ever saw on this list here, this is AngelList's share of capital deployed. If at one time it was just like literally farms were on this list, like all of our health problems and all of our and 90% of our environmental problems would be solved. So that's essentially my real goal is, can we get the farms can we get the money into the right farms who will actually be compensated to improve their practices, right? So that's essentially where we're going. And of course, this system was created in the 1800s, and it's still maintained by the same few entities. I mean, you know who these people are, right? So I don't have to probably explain myself all that much. And yes, it is imperial. It does have its imperialistic roots, and it's not a very good system. I mean, it's functional, but it is quite fragile, and it's withering at the roots, as I mentioned before. So additionally, despite their rhetoric, big CPG, which stands for consumer packaged goods, they're not actually structured for any type of real innovation, right? So if this is, for instance, comparing the research and developments, funding for tech companies versus consumer companies. Instead, their model tends to be just buying out smaller brands, right? So even the people who are trying to do the right thing, their general exit strategy is to sell to a large company who realistically is just going to fit them into the existing mold, and who are just too bureaucratic to change these things. And so it reinforces the status quo. So even when they get successful, it's not actually changing a lot. And then oftentimes they kind of just strip out the founder story, and then they kind of brand draft for a while, kind of making it seem like there's change, but there's really not. So that's a bummer, And of course, this problem is also at the multiple levels. So I just kind of want to, for a second here, talk about the scope of it, right? It's at the heart of our environmental problems. It's 26%. So 26% of all greenhouse gas emissions come from food, right? And so we know average global temperature, here it is, billion-dollar disaster events in the United States over for the last kind of 25 years or so. There it is. So we're actually starting to see real problems here in the environment. And, we're the United States, or I'm speaking from the United States, where, but different countries have it much worse than we do. Additionally, it's at the heart of our basically it's 50% of the world's habitable land is for agriculture. 70% of the global fresh water is used for agriculture. So if we can fix this system, we can change massive percentages of the issues that we're having in the world. And one last thing is that 78% of all of the pollution actually comes from this industry, right? So if we can shift the fundamental market dynamics, that would be a really big one, right? So here's just fertilizer costs, production. Here's one example, which are dead zones, which are caused from fertilizer runoff, and this is one of them on the Gulf of Mexico, and basically everywhere else too. So anyway, of course, it's also at the heart of our health issues. I mean, overweight, it's not really going. The trend isn't really decreasing. Also, people who are insecure is also decreasing. So the disparity, of course, is pretty stark. Over 300 million people in the last 5 years have become food insecure. So that's quite a massive proportion of people on the world. But of course, in the United States, we don't generally see this because it's not quite as obvious. And it also affects 1 billion farmers. There are 1 billion farmers in the world, and they're mostly, in South America, Africa, and Asia. So all of this, of course, is despite this massive consumer awareness, right? And we are totally demanding change. And look at how much this has increased, for instance. All despite, this aspects of sustainability, this is 1 year where people are now actually like, this is 1 year of difference to jump dramatically into more sustainable materials packaging. So the question is how are we actually going to solve it? Because we know the demand is there, and so the world is ripe for a breakthrough. But there's a lot of people who are working on this problem, and they haven't really seemed to crack it, right? Governments meet on this, like tech conferences are meeting about this. I really think, though, there may actually be a real solution. You know, so just for clarity, this food system suffers from perverse incentive structures that allow ourselves to be misled by greenwashing and advertising. Even the brands and manufacturers, we are also privy to the same issue. Farmers are exploited, commoditized, and incentivized to not use really great systems. So in order, though, to serve, and the implications of this all are very big. And in order to solve to really survive the next several decades, we do need a reset. And so I have a proposal, and I think it'll work. So, here we are. Yeah, well, now I said this kind of rhetorically, I would say, like back in 2016. I was this, 20-something-year-old bushy-tailed founder. I was like, I'm gonna change but I had literally zero experience at all. I was just like, oh, this is, and so the life has kicked me in the teeth a little bit over the last 7, 8 years, which is cool, because frankly, I've learned a lot about how the system works, how it doesn't work, and since then, I feel like I have a pretty good solution here. So let me just now share with you this global food supply chain that is integrated by Ample, right? So I want to use that word integrated because this is not powered by, but it's really connecting the dots. It's saying, look, we're all trying to do a good job of, what we're on the planet Earth to do, which is like survive and thrive and stuff. But we have these issues. So we need to cooperate, and the only possible way for us to do this is with a network. And this is why I'm saying that transparency and networking is actually the first important thing here. So our mission, though, is now show the world that real transparency is really possible. It's good for business, and then pave the way for other people to follow, and all while making some pretty darn good Ample. So the actual solution, though, in terms of how we do this, is relatively simple. So number one, we're going to take down this iron curtain. We're actually going to show you, in a second, I'm going to demonstrate this, a system where you can really see transparency. What does that actually mean if there's legitimately zero layer between us and the brand, or sorry, and you, the consumer? If there's, and not only that, but what happens when we automate this process? So if I'm a brand or if I'm a manufacturer or whatever, I actually don't even have a choice. It's just like, oh, the system itself biases towards honesty. And then, of course, be who we are. The problem is that so many people we're all just riddled with guilt, because we all know we're not doing things perfectly, and this dirty, document doesn't look great, and I don't know if the consumers, and I'm trying to sell a product, so it's like, look, just let it go, and and be okay with exactly where you are. Like, I'm making a lot of mistakes, and I'm probably doing a lot more run-on stuff than I probably would if but I think one of the processes there is just to be more okay with being authentic, and then secondly here is to let the dominoes fall. And what that means, or fourthly, I should say, and what that means is that as we shift these market dynamics will shift when brands recognize, and manufacturers and suppliers recognize, that honesty and transparency is legitimately better for business. And I'm going to show you why that is the case. So in order to do this, I'm going to share a different screen here. And so what that is a few different things. So I'm going to just kind of take a step back. That's the preamble, a long preamble. And this is our actual system, right? So imagine now that this is our product, right? So, and this is, by the way, this is the system that as soon as we get our manufacturing system set up, like our facility, this will be out. this is essentially done. All the data structure. Now this is a mock-up, but the actual front end of this is not the important, is not the difficult part. So we've created the system, we've done all of the sort of background work, and we've got an amazing tech team that I'm really excited about. So, but this is to show us what will happen in just a few months. So just like, I mean, you can obviously see here that like there is pretty much, this is similar information, right? But imagine if right below here, everything in this, now, okay, I'm not even gonna discuss that. Impact. Okay, so, well, and by the way, this whole thing of building the ship while it's running, our designer is literally doing this right now in real time because I had some issues. And so like there's just, oh, how funny, transparency is blank. But anyway, so of course we're going to see these environmental, impact things. But now but then also, okay, cool, this financial distribution, here's new. So what if the net profit, the overhead, the marketing and merchant fees, the shipping, the ample production, the freight and shipping, when you imagine if you knew that, and you could actually determine for yourself whether you feel like Ample is doing a good job of being a financial steward of your money. Are they taking too much? Are they spending too much? What if you just knew that? And what if Ample felt comfortable enough to give you that information? That would be really interesting. So, you know what I'm going to do really quickly here is I'm just going to quickly describe some of the back end. Although we've been working on this system for a long time, the thing that we've been really doing the last year or so is actually making our manufacturing system itself. So what I mean by that is this is the actual manufacturing system that we have for Ample. I was noticing a lot of issues with a lot of the other platforms out there, for making different products, for kind of managing inventory, for doing finances. And I'm like, why? And like integrating all these things. And I'm like, I just want to have a product that actually does all of these things and that integrates them, like all of them. And so we're like, all right, fine, we'll just make it in a really efficient way. And this is what we've done. So this is a mock-up of our new system, but our existing system, which does exist, is just less sustainable. It's not scalable. So that's why we have this. But it essentially looks something like this, where there's the business operations, there's the dashboard. I can essentially then add production runs to manage our finances, manage our production capacity. So this is essentially essentially what we're manage all these things. So imagine though if all of this information here that is in our actual system has no choice but to appear on our website. I have no choice in the matter. And so what I mean by that is, let's just say that there are, I don't know, raw material transactions that we make, okay? How much money does it cost? How much, where does it come from? What is the raw ingredients name? How much did we order? How much goes into the product? What if all these things that are actually built into my manufacturing system just immediately go up to consumers, and that consumers knew that? That would be real transparency, because they would no longer have to trust anyone to give them the information, right? There's no, hey, trust my seal of approval, and then back off and don't ask questions. You know exactly what I'm doing, right? And this makes the process very easy for me too, because it means I know I can't lie. I know I can't cheat. I know I can't do any of these things it's all there. So why would I even try? My expectation is that when this system, takes off, this is going to be a pretty big deal. Now, people are already pretty blind to these types of things like, symbols, right? Because they're like, look, people are making up seals of approval, but they're not blind to actual systems. This is a real system that is not just us deciding to tell this, it's us being forced to tell exactly what is the truth, because this is how we're actually running our business. So this is how the two stages of this system work together. So then, of course, we can see the environmental things, which is from real data, transparency, which is from real data, and ironically not here so far. And now we can actually see the real supply chains. We have the brand. We are also the manufacturer. Hey, but let's look at something like our suppliers. And once again, you, the customer, are able to see this. We use CoreFX. They use Serendipol. They're the farm. Okay, great. Well, let's look at the manufacturer. How do you make Ample? Excellent. what do you like? But really, how do you make ample? I want to see you make ample. Here's the documentation. How do you actually make the thing? How much grams of protein is in this? How many grams of fiber are in this? Like true, like like what's the formula? Now, when I say these things, there's probably a lot of fear, like, oh my God, who the heck is going to do that? Well, to be perfectly honest, I will do that. And I will prove to everyone in the market that, in fact, customers trust me a heck of a lot more than they trust your company, because they know that we're telling the truth. And my expectation is that the honest brands win when they realize that, look, I don't have to play games anymore. And so when we shift this dynamic fundamentally, of course, as well, the brands always by their own free will are opting in to do these things. So if they don't want to talk about their actual, like if they are a brand and it's true that their process is the most important thing, okay, fine, don't share it. But that means that your transparency kind of rating does reduce, because you can see that too. And if that's where you're at right now, totally cool. Maybe there are certain product development companies that like the formula is the big thing. For us, I honestly don't care anymore. Why? Because we're now a manufacturing company, and I can do things better than brands can, and we have a lot more sustainable advantages than just a brand does. So anyway, those are some of the market dynamics that make this possible. Now let's just go to this farm section, okay? So we've checked out the manufacturer. We have the supplier as well. Okay, cool. What is it? First of all, where is it? What's the story? Oh, wow, how weird. And and now what's the impact of this? Tilling, inputs, biodiversity, soil health, water. What are these from though? This is not from them just saying these things. This is actually from their system itself. And so what I mean by that is the more that, and so why would this happen? Well, why would even like farms do this? Well, it's because they actually know for the first time ever, customers can see what they do. Like authentically, they can see what they do. So now farms actually having visibility with not just a face and saying, look, this is a story. I mean, how many brands just do this these days? Oh, geez. They make a really cute picture. I mean, there's nothing wrong about this picture, by the way. But it's like we're telling stories. We're not actually giving facts. We're not actually allowing you to connect the dots and see for yourself. But when you do that, and when they recognize that when they actually till the soil better, or they, reducing it, or they have less inputs, they will change. Why? Because, well, I'll get into that in a second here. But when this network itself is established, that's part of the process. So, as well as the real documentation of, let's just say, the soil microbiome data. So all these things, and I don't know if I actually can go like this. Okay. So then we go back to the supply chain. Now, so I've shown the farm. I've shown the manufacturer. Here's the farm, or sorry, the whole supply chain itself, which of course is like, okay, so how much do we get this? Like, what do we pay for? Who gets what, basically? If this thing costs $11.50, who's getting what? Is the shipping? Is it the farmer? Is it the processor? We don't know. Otherwise, how are you going to trust this fair trade thing? And so, of course, the more information that we know, the better. And I'm not going to hide that information. And so, by the way, the other part of this thing, in the beginning, when Ample launches, we're not going to have all this information. And we're going to show that too. Well, why? Because like we don't have any, like we don't have all the farms. We don't have access to that yet. So as we increase our, and that's just the way it is with 99% of other companies, they actually don't. They do not know who their farmer is. So this is going to be a multi-year process of actually getting vertical integration here. But this process, the more that, number one, we try, because there are regenerative, farms out there. So, but the more we integrate that, the more that we can share this story with other brands, saying, look, it's actually possible to admit where you are right now to customers, even when that's not where you want to be, and have them be okay with it. It's better that you know the truth, that we don't know who the farm is, than to fake it and say, I went to so-and-so to, like, cool. And if you did that, fantastic. You get credit for that now, right? You didn't get credit for it before because you were having to compete with all these people who basically we're making up stories. Now, imagine if you have all of these products that are so imagine now this is I've described Ample from a brand standpoint. But of course, there's this manufacturing, and there's Ample the brand and Ample the manufacturer, and thirdly, Ample the system. This whole network so essentially we're a brand, a manufacturer, and a tech company all at once now. We used to be just a brand. We're now three times that. So imagine if the dynamic of this happen changes such that we can say, okay, you know what? All you have to do if you're a manufacturer or if you're a brand, you just use our system and upload the system to run your business, or an API to run your business. And in which case, cool. Now I can actually be now Ample can be a marketplace, for other transparent companies. Right now, the only opportunity that you have to do, I mean, you don't have a transparent marketplace. You have Amazon, you have wherever, right? So if these things are actually transparent, fantastic. Because now customers who are like, wait a second, literally all I'm watching right now on Amazon are ads. If I just went to Amazon, do I really want to go to Amazon right now? Okay, fine, I don't care. All right, I'm gonna buy again, or I'm gonna see ads, right? And I don't know which of these are ads, and I don't like the fact that they bias it towards the fact that, like, honestly, it's truly just about the consumer reviews. Like, we need objective measurements. We can't be making our food decisions based on 5-star reviews that could have been faked. What we can do instead, though, is we could say, okay, this is what we're looking for. What are the things that I care about, right? Maybe I care about the price. Maybe I care about the environmental score, the transparency, whatever. Okay, great. Maybe about and what if then I was looking at I guess here we are here. This isn't linking properly, but what if we actually cared about how much sugar was in the product? Then absolutely fantastic. That allows us to let's see here. How do I actually get back? Because okay. Work in progress, right? Now, these search results, of course, are actually going to be, right. So of course, this is the search results, and then, but as you can see here, this 3.6, whatever, this is not based on consumer reviews. This is based on the objective measurements that the actual systems are built from, the real data, right? And the actual data multiplied by what you care about, right? So, and then zero advertising at all. No advertising at all. Well, okay, fine, but how do you make a business? Great, well, we have a platform. We can sell this platform. People do a SaaS company all the time. The point is no money. By the way, Ample has, as a company, been ad-free entirely since April of about 18 months, 20 months or so. And so I plan on being that and I vow to be that forevermore. So because it's just not a good business model for determining truth. So of course, if that's the case, then I can finally come to this thing. But therefore, the point of what I'm saying here is that this is a network. It is the opportunity for us to expand beyond just a brand, expand beyond just a manufacturer, which, by the way, we may also make products for other companies as well who want to maintain these types of systems. And this is what will run the supply chain. At some point, of course, I could show you some of the other aspects of this, like the supplier portal that will be part of this thing. But of course, because if you're a new brand, you actually do want to find ingredients. Maybe you want to find farms that are doing these things. But the more the system is open, the more that itself, it will increase the funnel of, basically there are network effects is what I'm saying. That the more people that a network has, the better. The good thing though is that this product works without network effects at all. Why? Because we are a brand. We are a manufacturer. We can do these things and we can show people that it works. And frankly, if no one uses it, great. Why? Because we as a brand, we as a consumer, or as a manufacturer, we still make money. Why? Because we still sell a product that's good and people still trust us. And it actually helps us do these things. So the good thing about this is that each of these business models actually works totally independently from each other. Now, I know I'm getting into some of the financial details and some of the kind of structural things, but of course, part of this is required, number one, because you're a consumer, number two, because there are 2,800 investors who probably are also in part watching this video as well. So, and by the way, if you're an investor, I'm going to be sending out another video next week. So ultimately, at the end of the day, we are creating a system that, in my personal opinion, we're going to be able to, where honesty wins, right? Where the more this gets used, the more people will use it. The more the good brands are going to be successful. The ones with the lower, cost of goods sold, because they're not going to be, overpricing products and reducing, and spending that money on advertising. You're going to get smaller companies. You're going to get like influencers who have a trusted following, who actually don't need to spend any money on Amazon at all. And so they're going to take a smaller margin, but you're going to end up finding that those people, that like the system works. And so more and more consumers are going to switch to this new system. And when this happens, people will recognize, oh, bummer, in order to compete, I have to become transparent. And so the dominoes that fall here are, of course, going to be small at first, but of course, if you have enough momentum, you can kind of topple over some really relatively large chunks. And I will say one final thing, which is, at the very end of the day, what for me it all comes back to is the farmers. Those are the people. The farmers are the roots of this tree. And so once the connection point is tied, where farmers can finally have a place at the table, that's when the world really changes, because the right investment and the right data, the right measurements will be tracked by those people, and therefore will be available to the world. And that's when the investment comes in to support that growth. At the end of the day, what gets measured gets managed, always. We do not have the right measurements in this system currently to manage the right things. And when we do, with this system, that's when we change the world. I'm very excited to have shown this to you. Thank you so much. So let's see here. I think that's about it. How did I want to end this? I don't even. Hi, Chaitanya, can you hold it for a second? Can you put yourself on mute? Sorry. By the way, that's Chaitanya, our developer. And anyway, so right, Q2 is when we expect this thing to come out, and both of these things. By the way, this project that we're talking about does not hold up at all the manufacturing facility itself. And I just want to let you be known of that. And by the way, as well, any support during this time, whether it's pre-orders or whatever, is helpful. It certainly is. Like, this is a difficult time to an extent, for the fact that we have lower cash flow. We're fine, but feel free to pre-order 30% off. This will be the last sale, by the way. We're not gonna just discount it forever. So yeah, today, tomorrow, get while it lasts, blah, blah, blah. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you later. Thank you. How do I end this thing? Certainly.